But our next speaker is Brian Cassidy from Cork City Council, who isn't actually here yet, but should be back in a second. And he's going to be presenting the Build Upon 2 Energy Poverty Identification Platform.
Well, good morning, everybody. As I'm sure Colin said, my name is Brian Cassidy, and I work for Cork City Council on the energy efficiency retrofit projects and special projects that are associated with it, such as being a stakeholder in Empower and a number of other Interreg Europe and Horizon 2020 projects, where we mostly provide a test bed for people who want to carry out projects and make some of our housing stock available for those projects. Just it's the middle one. Right. All right, click.
Yeah.
Left click. Very good. Yeah. So why are we involved in what I want to lead up and talk to you about is the retrofitting indicators that were developed on the Build Upon 2 project, driven in Ireland by the Irish Green Building Council and driven throughout Europe by the World Green Building Council. So why are we involved in this space? Well, Ireland has commitments under the Paris Accord and subsequent conference of the parties fora. Our own Department of Climate Action, you heard Conor earlier, targets to decarbonise our citizens' lives. The Department of Housing has targets to improve the energy efficiency of the social housing stock, of which there are 140,000 units in Ireland and 11,000 in Cork. And our own local authority's ambition to align its goals with those set out in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There's also a national desire, and I'm calling it a desire because it's not in black and white, to reduce fuel poverty, and this has become a growing concern, particularly for us in social housing post-COVID because of rising fuel prices internationally. And we are on the start of a 30-year programme that needs a comprehensive national monitoring, measuring and reporting system to see how are we measuring up in terms of achieving our goals under the 2050 targets. There we go. So a little bit about Cork. So Cork is in the southwest corner of Ireland. It's Ireland's largest county. And with it, we have the city, which is the second city in the country. It has a population of 211,000 people, an area of 187,000 square kilometres, and as I mentioned earlier, there are 11,000 social houses. So what the City Council does is provide services in terms of infrastructure, environmental services and housing services. Plus, it has more recently developed an economic development role for the city. And the aim is to make Cork a better place to live, work and invest in. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, retrofitting actually helps us to live up to a lot of, or deliver on a lot of those goals. Because number one goal is to reduce poverty, no poverty. Promote good health and well-being, and we saw that with Eileen earlier on. She acknowledged that retrofitting will take over a lot of the health and well-being projects that are being developed and will form part of it. Resulting in affordable and clean energy. Well, if you're losing less energy, it becomes more affordable. Providing decent work and economic growth for the citizenry of our city. Aligning itself with industry. Innovation and infrastructure in the city. A good housing infrastructure is key to a prosperous city. Promoting the idea of these, or improving the idea of a developing city and developing communities, and them being sustainable. Responsible consumption. If we use less energy, we produce less carbon. Climate action. Decarbonisation is a key part of climate action. That's the part. And also, this project can only be done through partnership with industry, government organisations and non-governmental organisations. So, Cork City Council, where are we at in terms of achieving our targets for 2050? So our goal is to have all our properties, our social housing stock at what's known as an energy rating level of B2, you can see it here, or above. And you can see that at the moment that number is fairly low. probably around 800 or 900 if you add up the numbers. And what's on the other side is 10,000 social houses that need to be upgraded to achieve that B2 goal. And that is where we are aiming for. Bring all those houses over to the left-hand side of the B2 line. That's Cork City Council's goal. And that data is, I got it from a new product we are using, RetroKit, which you will hear more of tomorrow. There was a person coming in to speak about it. And all our, where we have a known energy performance, or what we call an energy rating certificate for our houses on the national database, RetroKit can extract the information from the database and present it to us in formats that we can manipulate and make decisions on. So, the main actor in Ireland in terms of the Build Upon 2 project and the indicators is the Irish Green Building Council, who are, as I mentioned earlier, they're a member of the World Green Building Council. In Ireland, there are 270 member organisations, and it has one common goal: to accelerate the transformation of the built environment, related industry and the supply chain to one that is sustainable through leadership, research, education, and providing policy input to national and local government. It is funded mostly through project work and through member subscriptions to the organisation. It is committed to working effectively and with integrity by being transparent and accountable in all its activities and adopting best practice procedures. And it is also embarking on a journey of compliance with the Governance Code, which is Ireland's Code of Practice for good governance in the community and in the voluntary and charity sectors. So, one of the Green Building Council's first earlier projects was the Build Upon project, which you may or may not have heard of, which was funded through Horizon 2020. And it wanted to build upon the existing resources that were available in each of the participating countries, so as to create a greater collective impact in retrofit and bringing our houses up to the required energy efficiency standards. And there were 1,000 stakeholders on this project, from governments and businesses to non-governmental organisations and householders across 13 countries, to shape the change needed in our existing buildings. And it did create a collaborative community to help countries design and implement their strengthened national renovation strategy. So the main output from it was a renovation strategy that was submitted to government by each country participating in the project. And Cork City Council was a stakeholder in that project. The next iteration, and the one we are concerned with today, was the Build Upon 2 project. So Build Upon 2, again, funded through Horizon 2020, and coordinated by the Spanish Green Building Council. And it had aims to empower cities to play a key role in Europe's renovation wave, to give cities across Europe the tools to lead the charge towards net zero carbon by 2050, by unlocking the huge potential of their existing buildings, and the focus is on existing buildings, and to develop an impact framework that enables cities to measure the diverse benefits of renovation projects across the environmental, the social and the economic factors, and also to help identify which of these factors can be scaled up to the regional and the national level. The Irish Green Building Council, as I said, was a partner in the project. Dublin City Council was a lead partner. There were 3 follower cities: Cork City, Kilkenny City and Laois County Council. So, Build Upon 2, its main output was a multi-energy renovation framework. And what it sought to do and to obtain was to obtain better quality data on energy renovation. So what's being done, where has it been done, and what has been the benefit? To support decision making. So if we know that certain property types cost so much to do, we can focus on them if we know that they're the ones we want to focus on. And that leads into preparing better business cases on energy renovation and supporting better engagement with a wider audience, such as people involved in health and people involved in environment. And it came up with 3 sets of indicators: environmental, indicators, social indicators, and economic indicators. And you can see them there, and I don't know if you can read that or not. But if we look at the three sets of indicators, they're examples, and you can add to them, or you can subtract from them to meet your own requirements in terms of what you are doing, what you are monitoring, and what you are measuring. But they're a good template from which to follow. So if you look at the economic indicators, typical economic indicators could be the investment in energy renovation or retrofitting. It could be the energy efficiency of the investment. How did we improve with the money we spent? What gain did we get in energy efficiency? How many jobs did we create in energy renovation in terms of full-time equivalents? Economic indicator number 4, upskilling in terms of energy renovation. How many people have we trained and how to do this better? And financial savings from energy renovation. So how much money are people or is society saving in terms of not spending that money on energy, on fossil fuel energy? The environmental indicators would be something like the energy renovation rate. How fast are we progressing in terms of energy renovation? The CO2 emissions reduction, the obvious one. The energy consumption reduction in terms of kilowatt hours per meter squared per year. And the renewable energy production. So people are putting in solar panels. How much energy is that generating and how much is that contributing to the national grid? And then we have the social indicators, which no, it's not here now, but sometimes can be much more difficult to measure the social indicators. And so, you know, fuel poverty being the obvious one. How many percentage of households are in fuel poverty, post-retrofit or pre-retrofit? The indoor air quality, how is that? Winter thermal comfort, can they afford to heat their homes? And summer thermal comfort, can they afford to cool their homes if required? So before we go any further, it's very important to talk about our data. What is our data? So I've broken this into three bits. The guys on the left, these are data fans. They love data and very sincere about it. So Chris Lynch says that big data is the foundation of all the mega trends that are happening now. A firm believer. Next guy, Gus O'Donnell, says he's a bit of a freak for evidence-based data analysis, and he strongly believes in data. Alex Penninger says that in the end, you should only measure and look at the numbers that drive action, meaning that the data tells you what you should do next. However, data is never perfect. So over here on the right, these guys, so this guy has concluded that for all his research at the top, he is not on speaking terms with his co-workers in terms of producing information. The next guy has analysed data so much that he has found an insight and he wants to create a big deal about it. The third one, they have paid massive money for a new information management system, and the system is telling them that they wasted more money on the information. That was their biggest waste of money the previous year. So data should always be treated with a certain deal of skepticism. And importantly, garbage in is garbage out, right? So the quality of information you're going to get out of your system is only as good as the quality of the information going in. And secondly, this touring from his head here, everything that enters the mind influences how we think and how we act. So don't let garbage enter your mind. And the same with our database. Be very careful of what we put in. Backing all that and behind all the data that's collected, you have the practitioners on the ground. And they're dealing with a lot of data and information as well. They're faced with standards, such as in this country we have the National Standards Association of Ireland, and they have standards and good practice guidelines for retrofitting, installing heat pumps, installing plumbing, wiring your house, putting in a gas boiler. And then we have the building regulations and the associated technical guidance documents for when you're constructing or modifying a building. And then for those of us in the retrofitting industry, Part L, which deals with energy conservation, is the most important, followed by Part F, which deals with ventilation, and followed by Part B, which deals with fire. Our own Sustainable Energy Authority has loads of guidelines on retrofitting and various aspects of it, which need to be read up and which need to be understood as well. And then if you're a public body, you must follow the public spending code, you must follow the public procurement guidelines, and most importantly around all that, we have the health and safety at work legislation, which must be adhered to as well. So it's quite complex. So when you get your data on what was done and what needs to be done, behind all that is a set of data and information on how to do the job properly. And for me, that's probably the most important part of this whole retrofitting project out to 2050. All the rest is nice to have. It's nice to know that people are fuel poverty. It's nice to know that we have houses at a certain energy standard, but the actual workmanship itself is what will sell this industry and will make it make an impact, a meaningful impact on people's lives. So just to let you know our achievements today, the local authority sector up to the end of 2020. Our project began really in 2013, what was called the Fabric Upgrade Programme Phase 1. It was designed at a time when the construction industry was in the doldrums, post the recession of 2008. It focused on low-hanging measures, and it looked at putting attic insulation, cavity wall insulation into homes, sealing up existing windows and doors, and capturing bird data. So the bird data, the graph you saw at the start, most of that information came from that project there. And then we had the Regional Assembly Operation Programme 2014 to 2020, which looked at upgrading the energy efficiency of our vacant housing stock. Followed by what we call Fabric Upgrade Phase 2, upgrading the energy efficiency of occupied housing, and the apartment deep retrofit programme, which we bought into in a big way in Cork City. And that was improving the energy efficiency plus installing heat pumps and solar panels in the homes. That was part funded through the EID. So what's the future for us? So 2020 saw a step change in what we're going to do. The Department of Housing laid out a 10-year plan out to 2030 and proceeding from shallow to deep retrofit. So 25% of Irish homes are going to achieve the NZEB standard of social homes will achieve the NZEB standard by 2030. That's 36,500 local authority houses, which is quite an ambition. Started off modestly in 2021 with a target of 2,400 homes, and there was 65 million allocated to the project. And the department, in order to get a feel for how this is going to progress and the likely costs involved, wanted us to do a mix of properties requiring various levels of retrofit to achieve the near zero energy building standard. And an emphasis on detailed data collection on the outputs, which goes back to the Green Building Council project on the environment, on the indicators of success. So our targets. So what we are trying to achieve is this NZEB standard. This is defined for Ireland. This is defined as in Part L, the conservation of fuel and energy in dwellings, part of the building regulations. Section 2.3 deals with major renovations of existing buildings. And it states that where a dwelling undergoes a major renovation, the energy performance of the whole dwelling should be improved to the cost optimal level, insofar as this is technically, functionally, and economically feasible. That's a very important statement, because what it recognises is not every building is going to come up to this standard. You know, it's just a matter of reality that various constraints will exist. So if you take things like a stairway up against the wall, if you insulate the wall internally, you're going to reduce the weight of your stairway, might be practically possible. So things like that come into play. Attic may have been converted, not a great job done, may be very costly to do it, and may not result in the desired outcome that you really want of a comfortable home. So compromises are built into our standard. And how do we achieve this cost optimal standard? The first attempt at it is to achieve an energy performance of 125 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year when calculated in Ireland's National Energy Database System. And that is set out in column 2, table 7 of the building regulations, which I'll show you later. or implementing the energy performance improvements as set out in column 3, table 7. And again, the emphasis on technically, functionally, and economically feasible. So we're not trying to wrap homes with a view to stop people from using them. We're trying to wrap homes and improve the energy efficiency while maintaining their livability and their habitability. So table 7 outlines different, detail now, it's not very visible there. But the left-hand column outlines what constitutes a major renovation that will kick this into place. Section 2 of the buildings 2.3 of the, or what would kick into place an energy efficiency upgrade to your home. The middle column outlines the targets that are to be achieved, and the third column outlines how it can be achieved. So, how to achieve cost optimum? So, what for us, what it means is upgrade the insulation of your home at ceiling level. So, whether that's ceiling insulation, rafter insulation, or some other form of insulation, and achieving new values greater than in table 5, which is on your right. So you can see the ceiling there, the roof, the pitched roof. There's set values, and then there's elemental values that must be achieved. So in a certain element, you might achieve a low rating, but overall, you must achieve a certain rating, given there in terms of watts per meter squared. You should replace your oil or gas boiler and your controls. If your oil or gas boiler is over 15 years old or has an energy efficiency of less than 86%. So they're not demanding heat pumps at this stage. I think heat pumps will become obligatory after 2026. We're right there. Anybody got an update on that one? And/or you can replace, if you have electric storage heating and it's more than 15 years old and with a poor heat retention of less than 45%, you should replace that as well. The third thing you should go do is upgrade your insulation at wall level where the new values are greater than in table 5. So the new values are there on the right hand side of the slide, and once you exceed those new values, you're on your way to achieving cost optimum, or B2, whichever it results in. So in terms of social housing, the programme that kicked off last year, the government has laid out the measures that are to be funded, and they will fund attic insulation, flat roofs, external walls, in terms of external wall insulation, dry lining, or cavity wall insulation, windows and door upgrades, and we see how good they were on the warmer home scheme that's by Eileen O'Connor earlier, heat pumps, LED lighting, birth certification. So they will provide a certain sum of money for each of those elements, subject to certain maximum levels. And for a mid-terrace house, the maximum level is 38,900, and for an end-of-terrace house, it is 45,400. But fortunately, they stuck a caveat in the middle of all that and said that the average cost over the whole project for the year must be 27,000 in our case. I think it varied was below the 30. And given the increase in building costs last year, that has become a bit of a sticking point. It was mentioned earlier about the European Code of Auditors report, and this grant scheme comes out of that, and it says that there should be greater focus on cost effectiveness, and that the funding will be subject to you producing and submitting a pre and a post work spur to the department, which goes back to the indicators from the Build Upon project. So they want to know about the CO2 emissions saved, which is one of the environmental indicators. They want to know about kilowatt hour per meter squared saved, which again is another environmental indicator, and the euro per kilowatt hour per meter squared saved, which would be the Build Upon indicator number 2. And again, they refer to heat pumps. In our case, and I presume it's the same throughout Europe, heat pumps should only be installed if your heat loss indicator for the home is less than 2. In certain cases, it can be 2.3, where certain new values are achieved, and less than 2.6 for certain other dwellings with a floor area below 55 meters squared. And that's on a pilot basis with maximum new values and monitoring of the heat pump performance by the SDAI. So, a look at our national database will tell you where Ireland stands in terms of retrofitting its homes and how it has improved. We actually do have a lot of information, a lot of indicators, just needs to be extracted from the databases. So for Ireland, if you look at this graph here, in 2009, the blue bars, you can see the best energy rating is on the left and the G, the lowest energy rating, is on the right. You can see that in 2008, of the energy performance certificates or the energy rating certificates that were available, the bulk of them were to the right-hand side of the graph with a lower energy performance. But if you look at that data in 2020, it is pushed on the green bars, it is pushed over to the left with an emphasis on BER ratings on C1, C2 and B3. So there has been considerable improvement over the last decade or so in terms of the energy performance of the Irish housing stock. So this is an example of the information that we submit to the government based on the Build Upon National Indicators framework. And so I broke it into three roughly. So the set on the left is kind of a pink, like a pink colour. We have details on the property itself. I just call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to anonymise the data. And from that we can get an idea of where the improvements have been made. So you could consider that a social indicator. The number of bedrooms in the house gives an indication of how habitable the house is, or maybe how many people actually live in the house. That would be another social indicator. The year the houses are built and the date the works are complete. They could be considered environmental and or social indicators if you wished. The blue columns then, the next 5 columns, give the first 2 elements of that, show you what the energy rating of the property was like before the project started. So that's the pre-works building or energy rating certificate. And the next 2 columns tell you what the energy rating was when the project was completed and when the energy works had been completed and what the new energy rating of the home is. And then the 5th column tells you about the savings in terms of the rated energy saved in the home. Now this doesn't necessarily transfer into the actual operational environment of the home. Those studies show that they're not that too far apart. A study done in Ballymun around 2007 showed that the difference in the energy, rated energy consumption, the actual energy consumption in Ballymun was very little. So it's a good correlation, but not necessarily accurate for the operational home. People living in the home using energy, that's different to what the theoretical knowledge of what it should be is. And then on the right, we have, you might call the economic indicators. So for every element that's completed, we put in the cost of completing that element of improvement. So that can be your attic insulation, if you read along the top line there, your attic insulation, your flat roof insulation, wall insulation, any dry lining that was done. And you can see on this project we didn't do any dry lining in those homes. Windows and doors, photovoltaic panels where they were put in, upgrade existing boilers, radiators replaced, you can do any radiator replacements, and heat pumps installed. And the cost of all that then is plotted on the right hand column, and there you get the total cost. So that's a good economic indicator as recommended by the Build Upon indicator framework. And the total rated energy savings for that project is 5,587 kilowatt hours per metre squared. And if you took an average of, say, 70 kilowatt hours or 70 metres squared being the average size of a social home, along with the fact that these are 2 and 3 bedroom units, you wouldn't be far off 40,000 kilowatt hours per year. So someone else can do the calculation. And just looking at it in more detail in terms of the indicator. So if we look at those houses, there was 21 of them. So before the work's completed, there's a bar on the left-hand side. And again, if you look at it, you can see that the emphasis in terms of the energy efficiency is towards the right-hand side, or the lower energy ratings, where 4 houses at G, 5 houses at D2. one house at B3 and one at C3. One house at B3 is because when that house was renovated about, I think it was 5 years ago, it became vacant. We renovated it. We put in internal dry lining in order to make the place warmer for the incoming tenant. So that's why it was at, and it got a new boiler, got a few new things. And if we look at what happened post the works being carried out, we have 7 properties up at A3, we have 9 properties at B1, 4 properties at B2, and 1 property at C1. So you can see there is a great improvement in terms of the building energy rating performance of the house, and that information there sits in with the build upon indicator framework. So finally, the social element, and this is always the more difficult. It's not hard numbers. It's talking to people, as Niall addressed so eloquently there. It's about meeting people and talking to them, putting monitors in their home and seeing how they perform. So the Haven project is a project between the National University of Ireland based in Galway and our own energy authority, SEAI. And what it aims to do is to study called the health impact assessment of deep energy renovations on Irish domestic dwellings, which is a bit of a mouthful. So it aims to study the health impact and associated benefits of energy renovation to higher energy efficient standards such as B3 in households. So they're trying to get an idea as to what's happening here post retrofit. So it's great, all this work going in, spending thousands of euro of taxpayers' money and your own money, or private homeowner, but what's the benefit? Has it really made an impact on your life? Or these retrofitting people telling stories, you know, to back up the assertion. It's a study in 2 parts. So 30 homes will have their indoor air quality measured before and after an energy renovation has been conducted. And as I understand it, that energy, those measurements will be temperature and humidity inside the room, inside the home. 150 people or households will be asked to complete a health questionnaire before and after a home has been renovated. And this goes back to the health and wellbeing project related to that. And an additional 150 people living in comparable homes to the renovation homes will be asked to complete a health questionnaire at 2 points to act as a comparison group. And as I mentioned earlier, the project is sponsored by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. In our case, we sought 50 people for this project and we got a response of 6. So we're going out again to them to see, can we generate more interest? People want to retrofit, but they don't necessarily, I suppose like all of us, they're leading lives, they don't necessarily want to be part of a project. They might see it as an invasion of privacy. So lots of reasons why people are reluctant to participate in these projects, you know. But we did get from Cork, and that's their national figure, so from Cork, getting 6 might be too bad, but we're going out again to the people whose homes we want to renovate either later this year or early next year, depending on what speed we can go at, and see where it is. Now, we did send those requests out just before Christmas. It might have been a bad time, now might be a better time. And all the talk about increased food costs might incentivize some people to participate. And if you want to learn more about the Haven project, it's on the NUI Galway website. They're shown at the bottom. So that's my presentation. Thank you all for listening. And
do we have any questions there for Brian from the room? I have one for you. You know, you were talking about the data going in and you were showing the board frameworks or whatever at the start. So you had economic, environmental, etc.
yes.
And you were saying that you can add or take from those.
Yes.
Are these the ones that are the recommended ones, or do you feel like there should be more or some taken away from? Like, are these the ones that would be the best ones to have in terms of analysis down the line?
I would like to see more data in the listed indicators on what's actually done to the homes, right? Because if that could establish a commonality, you could probably take a different approach. So instead of saying let's retrofit one home let's focus on heat pumps, or let's focus on external wall insulation, and bring it up in a more incremental way. And that might prove to be, and is actually more affordable for a lot of people, because the public first, which is well tried and tested at this stage, is the way forward, and seems to be the approach that certainly our government are taking.
So really, they should be the minimum.
Yeah, this number of indicators.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a minimum. I think as the industry grows and as research is required, more indicators will come out of the pot of information, and people will say, well, I want to know about this side of it, or I want to know about that, and that's. But the important thing that is that we collect sufficient data now, and unfortunately, in phase one of our upgrade between 2014 and 2020. The information we collected was very basic. So you take something like what I didn't mention there, CO2 emissions. When CO2 emissions was included, they just wanted to know what was the fall in CO2 emissions. But it didn't say about the pre and the post work. So if you move down 2 years from that, people are saying, well, where did that come from? And it's not that it's not there, but the amount of work that will go into treating that information will be much greater than if it's front loaded. Another thing I didn't mention was we're all talking about decarbonisation, but data is actually a carbonising product. You know, it's stored on servers, it's stored in databases that require cooling. So.
And another question then, you know, you said that you did the retrofit of the 21 houses.
Yes.
And then you had the post-works, VERs, or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Did you look at any operational evidence and to see if they're performing at those levels?
No. But if someone would like to give us this, because the Department of Environment people aren't here, but if someone would like to give us money, or if UCC or MTU would like to come in, or 3CEA would like to come in, we would be delighted to make. I'm sure the homeowners would.
The private piece that positive for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually taken from the last of the apartment deep retrofit program. They were the last units to be completed.
Yeah, good to know how they're performing operationally.
Yeah, and it's as someone said, it's a bit like flexi time. Anybody here moved from 40 hours a week into flexi time? There was the one piece of productivity that all the employees wanted, but this is the one piece of maintenance that all our tenants want. Okay, the number of queries we get, when is my home being done, is quite high, and it's something we haven't figured yet. You know, when you take a 30-year project, so if you try to tell someone now, well, your house will be done in 2049. So that's a generation away. I'd be gone. I want it now. So managing that space is something we need to get a better handle on, because these queries will grow.
Do you think to satisfy some of those people that there should be incremental change done then to do some measures rather than doing a full whole house retrofit?
Well, we've done the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
In most houses, we got about 70% of our houses stuff under what we call the shadow retrofit, low hanging fruit. You might ask the question, why didn't we get 100%? People not at home, people sick, people didn't want it. I have one 82-year-old lady who told me, you can do all this when I'm gone. But I don't want it, I'm quite happy. So, you know, you've got the human factor in there, so that's an issue for us. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the room? No?
Can I ask two questions? You know the way you're calculating all the before and after data and the energy savings in relation to kilowatt hours of, is that being, obviously this is data that's being collected on an annual basis as each property is retrofitted or whatever. Is it compared back to the ambient temperatures outside? Like if you have a particularly cold winter, you know, how does data from one year to the next be comparable?
We wouldn't have that. No, the retrofit will be here in the morning. They are doing a study linking our properties to the CSO and drawing the, I forget if I've got it right now, the expenditure on energy, and see how it varies over time.
Oh,
They'll be able to tell you more about that in the morning. But with the energy rating is a theoretical figure. It doesn't relate to the operating environment without, it makes certain assumptions, and I'm not going up on what those assumptions are. But it is based on assumptions. But reasonably accurate.
that's right.
Okay, do we have any questions from the chat?
No, I think we're okay.
Yeah, okay, thanks Brian. So next up now we have Derek Roddy, who's going to present on behalf of the Energy Cloud. Derek is the CTO of Energy Cloud and Climate.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks for the introduction. Colin asked me, he's very persistent, a couple of months ago to come and speak at this event. I didn't really know what it was about, but it was on the idea that they're looking for some good practices or some ideas that we could lean on or look to. And I think this morning we've got plenty of insight into fuel poverty and what's the definition of fuel poverty. And then Brian there obviously on the actual housing stock. Energy Cloud, I'll give you a bit of background. My name is Derek Roddy. I'm a co-founder of Energy Cloud. It's an organization with members in it. But my main role, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've built a technology company, and we build smart thermostats and we build smart immersion controllers. So my background is in deploying technology. And about 7 years ago, we got our first introduction to social housing with our technologies. We deployed 4,000 smart thermostats into my local authority, Louth County Council. So basically a local authority, their entire housing stock, we put in a smart thermostat. And as we were doing those installations, we got to see a completely different world on how people were using heat for their home and their hot water. So between heating your home and hot water, it represents about 80% of your energy spend. And we had a first-hand insight into how people were spending that money on energy. What was staggering was that people in social housing sector and fuel poverty were typically taking 1 hour of heat a day. So they were turning on their heat system for 1 hour, and that was it. So the 1 hour of comfort, or maybe 2 hours of comfort a day. And on their hot water tanks, the mad thing was they were all over the place. There was immersions being left on permanently. Some people had them on for 25, 30 years and never had them switched off, but they couldn't afford their energy bills, but this little tank was bubbling away in the corner. So during that process, over the last 5 years, we've learned a huge amount. We've actually technologized now 20,000 social houses in Ireland, and we've been able to get a really, really good insight into what's happening. That got my R&D team developing technology to look at the hot water tanks. And when we had it all built, we realized there's no way to get it really deployed, because you need to look at scale. And that's when Energy Cloud was born out of an event like this, where I was sitting in the audience at a social Entrepreneurs of the Year Awards, and it was a social enterprise came up on stage. They were called Food Cloud. We stole their name, and they were there to talk about food poverty. And the idea being that they would visit local shopping centres and local malls in the evening, pick up the food that was about to go on a date, take it back into a warehouse and redistribute it to people in food poverty. They had delivered, I think, 100 million deals within 5 years or 6 years of their startup. And I'm sitting in the audience going, whoa, we have a huge amount of surplus wind energy that we dump. I wonder, could we create a not-for-profit, a social enterprise, and redistribute surplus wind and give it to people in food poverty? So I went home that night, stole the concept of Food Cloud, changed the name, put in energy rather than food, and this is what we come up with Energy Cloud. So that's the background of what we're going to talk about over the next, how long have we got, Rose?
You have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. So with that in mind, I'll give you some of the key stakeholders, because when you're tackling a problem like this, Brian, you mentioned there in your last comment, fabric first. So there's a different way of looking at that. We dump about 100 million euro of energy. Actually, over the next 5 years, there's a chance it could be up to €1 billion of zero carbon energy will be just spilled. And if people want to know what's happening there, basically a wind farm is spinning, there's no demand, so they just switch it off. Okay, so it just doesn't produce. But there could be 1 million people in Ireland or across Europe or across the world turning on a fossil fuel boiler to do something like heat up their hot water. So that's the concept. So when we were looking at this problem, we were trying to say, could we come up with a solution that could actually tackle that €1 billion problem, and how would we do it? And to do that, you have to look at the system. So we looked from the wind farm, how the actual system works from the wind farm here, right through all the cables into your home, and how would you actually solve that problem. And you'll see the key stakeholders here we have on the bottom, are basically all the people, including the fabric, right along that value stream. So I just want to get in, because the people, this is all about people, it's not about Derek here talking, it's about these people. And Noel Caniff here in the centre, Noel is now the CEO of the Irish Wind Energy Association. So Noel basically represents all, or 90-something% of all the wind farmers in Ireland and their production. So when we were looking at Energy Cloud as a concept, I approached Noel and asked him, by any chance would your wind farmers give their surplus energy to people in fuel poverty? It's a big ask because I know you want to sell it, but would you do it? And Noel went back and came back and said, in general, our wind farmers would be open to that idea. If they could give it to people in poverty, they'd rather do that than see it wasted. So then I went and met Joe, who's a customer of mine, who's the director of property for Clúid Housing, the largest housing association. I met with Joe and asked Joe, will he be interested in some free energy that's coming off wind farms? And Joe said, yes, I would. So Joe and Noel met, and we met in a hotel, and we agreed we'd create a not-for-profit, and both Noel and Joe became directors of Energy Cloud. So we had both ends of the cable, for want of a better word, as partners in Energy Cloud. And then we had to go and attack all the different key stakeholders. Owen Kennedy is the head of Airgrid operations in Airgrid. So Owen's the person who tells the wind farm to switch off. So Owen's a partner in Energy Cloud. We had Colin de Burke here, so ESB Group own all the cables. Colin's the director on Energy Cloud. And then we had Stuart, who's SSE, one of the retailers. Stuart's out selling the energy, along with ESB. So you have two of the major retail energy companies that actually sell energy. So they're part of it. And then if you go through the list, we had Siobhan and Kingspan. So Kingspan are the largest fabric, one of the largest ones in Europe across the globe. Siobhan's the global marketing director. So that was the fabric first approach. We wanted to take Kingspan on board. And then Colin was the PR to pull us all together with a coherent voice. And then Ciara's from Technology University Dublin, looking at the actual research side of it. What are we going to learn from this, and how could we help influence government policy? From my point of view, I suppose, when I approach a problem, it's more about the people and scale. So I call them love bomb trials, because there's just so many trials out there that get so much love, but can you actually scale them? And I've been around the world working with energy companies, and that's the one thing that really annoys me. We do loads of projects, but they're not actually modeled to scale. And I wanted to try and see, could this group of people come to the table, and could we sit around the table and actually try and solve a scalable problem? So could we come up with a solution to solve it? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get governments and the regulators to agree to let us use the cable at night time or off peak for free. It's already there. It's into all your homes. It's not been used. It's not busy. Could we use it for free? Could we use that infrastructure for free? Because as a homeowner, I'm in fuel poverty. I've already paid for it through my day-to-day bill. And rather than energy being wasted, could we use the infrastructure for free? So we're breaking all the rules of how energy markets work, but we're trying to get these people who run that energy system to come up with how to do it, if that makes sense. So the target, these numbers can get thrown around. Is it 50 million? Is it 100 million? What is the actual number of energy that gets wasted? And it's huge. It's absolutely massive, and it's going on one way. So the more wind farms we put and solar farms across the globe, the more curtailment. And the reason for that is very simple. We're not in control of the weather. So when the weather storm blows over a country, or the sun starts to shine, or cloud cover comes over, we're either on or we're off. And we're not in control of that. And the problem that's been happening around the globe is customers or people in fuel poverty are seen as the last people that you have to worry about. they're sitting there with a demand, but they're not being asked to match that demand when the wind farms are blowing. So how do we bring that all together? And that was the ambition here for Energy Cloud. If we know there is 100 million, if you think about 100 million euros worth of retail energy. Actually, the senator recently in the Shannon in Ireland here, and the minister challenged whether that was 300 million euros worth of retail value energy wasted in 1 year. And we have people in fuel poverty. So if we get this right, we could be given 300 million euro back into the pockets of people in fuel poverty that can go and spend it on other items. And that's the modelling that we've at Technology University have done. They've taken 461,000 homes. The definition again we talked about is that the number of people in fuel poverty, where it's a lot of people. And if we had those and we had that number of people, we could consume that amount of energy? So could we consume it all? And I'll show this in the slide in a couple of minutes. We think about 89 to 90% of all curtailed energy that's wasted. Those homes would use it just in hot water, in their hot water tank, not heat pumps, nothing else. Literally hot water to have a bath or a shower. And you could end up with one bath, one tank full of hot water a week if we spread it out over all those 460,000 homes. So there's times when everybody get it, and then we've got to ripple it around how people get that. But the ideal scenario would be once a week, you get a tank full of hot water for free. That's the concept to get going. So how are we actually proposing it? And Brian, you mentioned giving away stuff for free doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get customers on board. But the concept here is quite straightforward. And if I asked you here today or people online, if you've got a hot water tank, how much hot water have you got in your tank? Does anyone know what hot water they actually have in their tank today? Some people might have the technology to do it, but 99% don't know. So what we're doing is we're going out to the homeowner and we're putting a piece of kit, retrofit it onto their existing tank, and you can see for the first time ever what's in their tank. So you can actually see the amount of hot water that's in their tank. And that is a bit of a game changer. If we've done nothing else, they'd be happy with that, because for the first time they can actually just see I've got this amount of hot water or this amount of hot water. But the concept is we give them this kit for free, and once we're on that, we're on their immersion switch, their electric switch, then we're able to remotely control it when that's switched. So we're not asking for any behavioural change, we're not asking for them to do anything different, just do what you've always done. But there will be times when we'll actually give you a full tank of hot water and we'll let you know when we did it. Okay, so it automatically happens in the background, you get a free tank of hot water. And that's the pitch to the residents. We've gone out and I'll talk about the pilot in a second, but this wouldn't be straightforward enough. I know from having deployed technology that if you get the customer proposition right, people will take free kit, and there's not an issue there, but you've got to give them something back, and we're giving them free energy. So that's the sort of letter out. This is the key ingredient here. You need partners. So if anyone across Europe is looking at this, you have to engage with your energy companies from the get-go, the retailers. So I've gone around, my role in Energy Cloud after Christmas was to talk to all the energy retailers that are in the sector and get a view whether they'd be willing to support Energy Cloud's ambitions with the facilitation Energy Cloud on the bill. So you can see here a draft sample bill where SSE send out a bill to a citizen at the moment, and here in the yellow box, 242 units of free energy were delivered. So Energy Cloud over the last month give you 242 kilowatts of free energy, and then that will be itemized on the bill what it was worth, and you got it for zero. Okay, so, and it's zero carbon energy. And this is a big deal because energy companies don't like messing around with their bills. So we're literally twisting loads of arms and asking them to do it. And the idea that when we scale this up, it would become a part of your overall energy bill if you're in fuel poverty, that you would have an Energy Cloud line item on your bill. The actual projects, constant time, projects and how they work, Fluid and Energy Cloud in a partnership recently. It was launched by the Minister for Housing with the ambition of doing 50 homes, and then we scale that up into Fluid's 8,000 properties It's not really, from a technology point of view, it's not that difficult to do. What is difficult is getting all those stakeholders to agree they want to do it. And then if there's a willingness to do it, we figure out technically how to do it. So we've got to get everyone agreed that they want to do it. And that's been the key ingredient. Clúid have been a fantastic partner. And then recently, I didn't mention Gabriel in the original slide. Gabriel's role, Gabriel Darcy here in the photograph, Gabriel has come in, we had all the team built, and we realised we needed an independent chairperson to come in and basically offer us a vision and a direction of how to coordinate all these opinionated geniuses around the table and what we should do next. So Gabriel was the former CEO of Bord na Móna, who transitioned Bord na Móna from burn and peat into a renewable company this today. But Gabriel was the start of that process. So we felt that we had someone with Gabriel's knowledge in transformation and transition to come in and chair. So he is now chairperson of Energy Cloud. So we have a good independent chairperson to come in and lead and direct us going forward in the future. The actual proposition is dead straightforward. Partnership, Clúid arrive into a house with an electrician, knock on the door, walk into your hot press or your room where your hot water tank is. We take off your old mechanical switch, we put on a new digital switch, we put sensors on your hot water tank, we can see what's happening in your tank when we leave and we're gone within 1 hour. And the homeowner can now control their hot water tank from an app, or they can do it manually on the actual switch. But that's it. It's an hour install and we're gone. And that's the key piece. Quick, easy to do retrofit from one on. You can see here we deployed it, and the surplus energy is available. We use the existing hot water tank, so if someone's into technology, they can use an app, see what's happening. If they're not, it doesn't matter. It works the mechanical switch. And the target is to include 8,000 properties. We've got a lot of interest. We've done some promotion last year, Colin, that's probably really picked up on it. So we have a lot of interest from local authorities in Ireland and social housing across the UK. And we expect if we prove this to create a template that could be copy pasted across the globe. That's the concept here. And the pilot scheme, just finishing up, pilot scheme, we identify the houses, we're looking at existing hot water tanks. There is a whole piece to it, I'm very conscious of it. Niall was saying earlier on, there is who deserves the energy and who shouldn't get it. In my view, I don't really try and get too bogged down in that. Someone else with a lot more brains can figure out who should get it, shouldn't get it. But we have 100 million being wasted. So we spent a year trying to figure out who shouldn't get it. And we've dumped another 100 million of energy. And if we spend another year doing it, that'll be 200 million of energy wasted. So my view is just give it away and we'll worry about that. So we might use something simple like people who are in receipt of a fuel allowance automatically apply. And if we can expand it or reduce it, we do that. We don't want to get too bogged down much longer on who shouldn't get it. And we just got to go ahead and make it work. So that's it. There is the big change that happened in Ireland recently. The Irish government decided to give basically homeowners 400 million back. And from an Energy Cloud's point of view, we were trying to figure out how could we get technology deployed. And the government just rocked up and said, we'll just give you money back. So that could have paid for a technology deployment that would give people 200 to 400 million of discounts every year of their energy bills. So it's just trying to rethink how we do stuff, and that's what we're trying to do in Energy Cloud. But I will say, look, some people have asked me what would you have learned of the process? Getting the key people along the system in place. So every single organisation, ESB, Airgrid, all grid out, there's always a pain in the ass entrepreneur or intrapreneur or person who wants to change those organizations. And we're just giving them a platform to actually do what they always wanted to do in Energy Cloud. And they're doing it with something that's already been wasted because it's already surplus, and that's what we're doing. I hope I've covered everything off there. And if anyone's any questions, and well.
Can I ask you a question there while Colin is coming on? You mentioned there that you've got kind of agreement with SNC and electricity. What about the other energy suppliers? Can you go work with them?
Yes, so ESB are part of our organisation as well, in Energy Cloud. So ESB represent the majority in Electric Ireland of retailers in the country, and then SSE But I did go around them all just after Christmas and conversation with them all with the facilitate energy cloud. It's hard to say no to us, because we're trying to do the right thing. But I have to be honest, they were far more proactive than I thought they would be, and really wanted to help and really liked what we're trying to do. Because they know themselves, they're sending out bills to people in poverty, they're struggling to pay, and if they could give them something back in return, they're willing to do that. So it's a bit of hassle for them, but not huge. But I was quietly surprised, Rose, at the positivity of the retail energy companies to help out with Energy Cloud. Like this Energy Cloud is technical, Energy Cloud curtailment of what's happening in wind farms is very technical. It's like a bucket with a hole in the side of it's leaking away, but no one's noticing it, so don't mention it. But that's what we're trying to do, and all the energy companies know about it, but no one's really trying to figure out how to stop the leak. And that's what we're doing. But when you're dealing with energy retailers, they know about the leak, and the idea that they could use that and give it back to people is they've been very positive about it.
Just from our perspective, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer, like, we can talk about what we want, but as you said, we're taking energy that otherwise is just purely wasted. And if we can't give it to the most vulnerable in our societies, that's a problem. But even across Europe, this is happening everywhere. Not just in Ireland.
Exactly. Now, Ireland is we're probably several years ahead of most European countries. If you look at how the energy, so look at Airgrid, there's planes flying to Dublin for people to go and see how we run our energy system. Because we're an island, we have huge amounts of wind and we have a lot of renewables that hit us, but we don't have a way to get rid of that renewable energy. So we're a really good country for doing tests and pilots in this particular area. But Europe will have that problem. So in Denmark, for instance, they might have 100% renewable, but they're connected up to loads of countries, so the cables can be distributed with that energy. But we here are definitely at the forefront of what's likely to happen in Europe in 4 or 5 years' time. We've just got so much sun and wind at the same time. What are you going to do with it? But we definitely shouldn't be burning fossil fuels when we've got that renewable energy. But it is technical. But if you have the people around the table who know how to solve those problems, that's how you unlock it. That's the key takeaway, I think, for me, is get those people around the table to remove the barriers of, oh, it's very difficult, it's hard to do, and get them willing to actually say, okay, let's do it, we're doing it for the right reasons.
I think you can see why I tested him. Because when I first saw this a few months ago, I was kind of blown away by it. Because obviously we've done lots of research and we've looked at a lot of behaviour stuff, and we've identified the problem, etc., and as Brian had said, they've been dealing with the retrofit stuff, but then this kind of moves it on to an actual practical use and how to tackle it. So we've kind of moved on now, and this is actually right, let's do something about it, which Niall was saying earlier on, let's chit chat and just get on with it. So when I saw your original pitch, I just thought, my God, free energy, I can't believe it. So for me, the doors that you're knocking on, I think you need to keep knocking on it and kick them and bang them, and whatever you need to do to get them open. But for me, I mean, this kind of initiative is just an absolute game changer, So I mean, this, and as you say, it's scalable, it can easily be rolled out in other countries, no problem whatsoever. So I just thought it was really clever. So in terms of, I presume that obviously where you see this going is with the likes of the warmer home scheme, that this would be one of the measures that would be supported through the SEAI thing. So they basically come along, do the fabric bits and pieces, and then whack in your piece of kit. Or even as a standalone measure, somebody just goes on and says, I want, or if they're in fuel poverty, they automatically get this or whatever. So that's kind of where it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a slight challenge there because governments across the world are looking at it, big measures. You see the Irish government recently, they're really looking at just doing big stuff. So Brian's putting up the slide there where it's 40, 50,000. Or these are small measures, this is 150, 200 euros to put in a piece of technology that could basically give people energy. But I find there's a lot of pushback from government just don't really want to tackle small stuff.
I mean, what are you talking here? 500 per year saving, or what sort of saving per year?
Yeah, so a tank quality could be up to 100 euros, 200 euros a year, so the payback is basically 1 year.
1 year.
But it sounds great, but that's what I'm saying, I'm finding governments, like, you look, all single measures being removed from SEI's proposals this year, so you don't really get anything for single measures, so this can't even be granted. This technology, this capability can't be granted under SEI at the moment, so we don't have any government support at all to do it. But you're looking at people who are in poverty, who are using a gas and an oil boiler to heat up their water or to heat up their home. We could give them access to zero carbon to replace it, but there is no incentives. So
Rather than speaking to the likes of Brian direct in Cork City Council, do you need to be talking to the department, or do you think you should be talking to him and he should be talking to the department?
Yeah, so in fairness, that's a really good question, Colin. So our approach has been Clúid, the largest housing association in Ireland, and Clúid, quite rightly, will be knocking on the door of government going, we want to do this and we want to help our 8,000 citizens, and they'll probably get a better hearing than we would, and that's our approach to it today. And that's not saying we're not talking to government. We will. The key thing with Energy Cloud is somebody is actually, the key thing with Energy Cloud is the wind farm, the generators. So if we look, everyone here in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years time, there's going to be wind farms everywhere, solar panels, we're going to be collecting as much as we can. But the homeowners have got to work with us. Right? So the citizens, they've got to know when it's windy. So we should be looking at weather forecasts going, it's going to be windy next Wednesday. That's charging the car time, having showers and bath night. That's when we do all that stuff, or it's going to be sunny. And that's the way people's behaviour is going to change. We're going to see weather linked to low-cost energy.
What you're saying is on a Tuesday night, everyone will be ready saying, Derek's going to be sending us our free hot water tonight. We'll get ready for the bath.
We were joking about it recently, and Niall mentioned that the idea of bath night was a thing when we were all growing up.
You were going to dictate what people are watching in the country.
Well, I don't know. There's a piece there we have to be careful to, but we'd be suggesting that Wednesday night might be a good night.
Well, okay. Wednesday night, Friday night. Yeah, that's when you get free energy. Brian?
Yes, thanks very much, Derek. Very interesting project, and a lot of good could come out of this. I'm just curious about the decision-making process at the tank. So is it a combination of I need hot water in the tank and there's low carbon electricity available on the grid that might be turned off? Or is the algorithm, I presume there's an algorithm there somewhere making.
So stage one is a bit like if you're deploying a smart thermostat or a new technology. You always ask people what do they currently do. So that's when we're installing technology, we will always get existing behaviour. Don't try and change the existing behaviour just as you're deploying this kit. Yeah. So we get them to do that. So if you've been boosting your water for an hour every day, just continue to do that. And then you start coming up with ideas. So we don't want to be going in and telling people, I'm sorry, Rose, you're going to have to change. I know you've always had a shower on a Friday night, but you're going to have to do it on Tuesday night. It's just not going to work. So we're just asking Rose to always do it. And we're going to see the behaviour. But we might see, for instance, today you might be turning on your gas boiler to heat up your hot water at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but we know there's a storm coming across the country. So you think, and you could think your gas boiler is doing the job, but it was done with zero carbon energy from the grid. So you didn't have to do anything. Just look at your behaviour, inject it in the zero carbon energy, and you didn't have to do anything. That's the ultimate, is to get a customer signature. You tell us what you want, and we use the technology and the smarts and the algorithms to give you that output at a lower cost or a zero carbon output. So that's the bit that you've got to get right, Brian. And it's not insignificant, but if you always follow the customer's existing behaviour, it's a lot easier trying to change it.
Yes, whereas at least when you go to use that hot water, it's there, which negates you having to call for it on your gas boiler. So it just eliminates you having to call for it at that time.
Yeah, ironically, that we're often tangent here, but for instance, if you were heating up your hot water at 7 o'clock this evening, and your gas boiler is programmed to come on at 6 o'clock to do that, if I heated up your tank now with zero carbon electricity, your boiler will come on at 6 o'clock. It'll just switch off straight away because it sees the tank's already full. But I didn't have to go and annoy Rose to say, don't turn off your bike, do this.
So you're kind of potentially giving somebody something twice, because what you're doing is you're giving them free electricity to heat the tank, but you're also stopping them having to
Use
buy
carbon.
additional gas. So you're actually, they're scoring twice from you.
So we get it right. From a government's point of view, you could and should be able to remove, give them the free energy, but remove the equivalent amount of carbon from the system.
Yeah.
There's two wastes. It was currently being dumped, so the zero carbon is being wasted. That's one loss. But if we can actually take that and replace fossil fuel,
That's a lot of carbon potentially.
oh, huge.
Because if you want to heat somebody's hot water tank, depending on the size, you could be talking half an hour of gas boiler going or whatever it is, if it's cold. So that's a lot of half hours.
Well, just to give you an idea, just for people who are listening in and here in the room, if you switched on a million hot water tanks this second, it's 3 gigawatts of demand. Like the Irish grid runs between 3 and 6 gigawatts for all electricity. That's the type. If you switch it on for an hour, you could store up to 6 gigawatt hours. It'd be the biggest battery in the world if you could just use it. But we don't see it as that because they're all little wee dots all around the country in 460,000 people's homes. But when we join them up, they become a huge store for energy. But they're not joined up, and that's what Energy Cloud is saying. We're going to join these up. We're going to talk to the wind farm. We're going to give you a place to put that energy. And that's the objective.
Do we have any questions? Sorry, we have more questions in the room.
Yeah, so just that's not a question, but we're involved in 2 projects which are doing something similar. One is saying, let's look at low carbon electricity on the grid, and when it's there, let's charge our electric storage heaters, and next, let's charge our storage battery. And they're currently working on the algorithm. So the installation works will start hopefully, this is March, April, May, and be finished at the end of May. But once that's finished, the algorithm then is going to be key, because like you were saying, it's free electricity. What we're saying, low carbon electricity is what we want. And hopefully somewhere down the line, you're obviously more advanced on this now because you'll get it for free. There is a proposal that low carbon electricity will attract a lower tariff.
Yes, yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know what that was there 2 or 3 years ago. So that should benefit everybody. And yeah, if actually,
So there is the old battle of the algorithm. Who owns the algorithm? Where is the algorithm going to be built? I have a very simplistic view on that. Large, big energy companies. We're doing a project with a huge European energy company, and they're able to manage your battery, your car charger, your heat pump, and they've spent hundreds of millions on a system and an algorithm to manage all that. I don't really see that as that's going to be built. It's more a case of, can we do an agreement to get the surplus?
Yes.
So can we get the energy wind farmers to agree? Yeah, that's our day-to-day business, but we're going to give our surplus to food poverty. That's what we're trying to do there, Brian. It's a different twist on it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's a bit like what's the definition for food poverty? We just spend too much time trying to figure it out. It's important, and then I find in the technical world we try who's building the algorithm and how's the algorithm. And again, way too much time. Like Apple, Amazon, these are the platforms that will end up managing all these algorithms. So it's how you work with those.
Yeah.
So we kind of try not to bog down on the algorithms of how they're going to work.
Okay, can we take one last question before we go to our lunch?
My question is the energy distributed, like the renewable energy distributed evenly to each household that is connected to the system?
Is the renewable energy distributed?
Like evenly to each household get the same, like at the same time, the same amount of energy?
Very, very good question. So Technology University Dublin are looking at that specific piece of research. How do we evenly distribute it? That Colin doesn't put his hand up every day and grab hold of all the energy. So they're going to look at that piece of research. I think it's an important piece of research. Now we did look at, we looked at the food industry. I talked to the CEO of Food Cloud on this. Who gets the food? How do you decide who? It can get complicated, but she warned me, so the CEO of Food Cloud, don't get into that. Solve the problem first. In other words, get it all and get it agreed that you're giving out food, and then worry about calling it too many burgers this week. Not suggesting you didn't call it. Worry about that later, but it does need to get solved. It does need to get solved. Now, it could be just simply back to why everyone gets a tank full of hot water every week, and we just ripple it around who gets the tank filled. But that's the objective. So it will have to be solved.
Just one, if I may, why name the water tank, given that the rest of the house wouldn't be consuming it often unless we're using the cooker?
It's just electric. It's easy.
No, but why just, I'm just thinking, it
Why
would
just-
easy to expand to the whole house.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So clearly, for instance, we'll have 1,000 heat pumps that we can connect in. But it's just something.
Get it going.
If you go back even to the behavioural side of it, or take roads, we're not asking you to do. If we were messing about your heat pump, we'd have to get into the heat pump manufacturers, or we're going to be messing about with their profiles and how their algorithms work. So this was something that I knew we could do and not go to jail over it. So we just started with the easy one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
First speaker now for this afternoon session is Sergio Gattacci. Am I right with that? Not too bad, Sergio. From the Regional Energy Agency in Italy, and he's going to speak to you Living Consciously Energy Poverty Behaviour Change Programme. So I'll hand you over next, Sergio. Thank you.
Oh, good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank a lot Rose, because was Rose that highlighted the energy poverty in the Empower project. We are here for this project, but to put the attention about energy poverty was an idea of Rose. And I'm very glad she had, because I discovered a lot of stuff even in my town. So thank you, Rose. Tomorrow for the wonderful hospitality, but the idea was great and was up to date. I think that never like in these days we can appreciate what the importance of to fight the energy poverty because of the COVID, because of the war, because of the fact that I was reading that now Putin wants ruble to pay his gas. And so, I mean, everything will charge on our shoulder. I can tell you about the Italian experience, the Florence experience. I said the Italian because this good practice regarding how to fight the energy poverty comes from a national initiative that was run by Federcasa. Federcasa is the company where all the social housing companies in Italy are inside. For my side, of course, I worked especially in Casa SPA, that means home SPA, that is the joint company with public participation and public control constituted by the municipalities of the Florentine area. But this good practice that comes from a national idea, that I will explain after, follows a series of initiatives. They are not wide, like Brian told us before regarding Ireland. It is a smaller experience than what you run, but it's very important because Casa SPA since 12, 14 years made a progressive replacement of the old social housing with new wooden buildings in A class. So they destroy and rebuild. This is all the houses that can have a retrofit with reasonable costs. No? You know, at a certain point you have to choose. Some it's worth to destroy and rebuild, some you can also make a retrofit. But a lot of houses in Firenze have been destroyed and rebuilt in wood, local wood, that was important, and made in A class. And this is one big operation. For this, because Empower is focused on about meter, we have the support of the university, because all the smart meters that are inside this wooden houses are made by the University of Firenze, the Faculty of Engineering, who studied a lot of matter about wood, because about humidity, about the quality of the air, and all this computing system go inside the room in each block of this social housing, where you can study what's going on. And this has been very useful, especially for humidity that can damage the wood. And so there has been a great study. Then we have another great initiative that was the commitment of the municipality of Firenze to install a hot water production system with solar energy that lasts 12 months in a year with a big storage. I know that this is just in Netherlands, a big storage like the one is, the storage is already built. Now they are connecting the solar plants, and that's over a big block of popular social housing. So that block consists of 150 apartments. That's quite a lot. This storage comes from an European project, Horizon 2020, that's called Replicate, where Florence is one of the players. And now they are in executive phase, this Replicate project. They are certifying the centralization of the plants. And so you can see we have plenty of initiatives about how to fight the energy poverty, where there are the things that was telling the lady of the European Commission, I don't remember the acronym of this, but yes, because there is the study improving of technology and improving of another stuff that is the focus of this presentation and of the good practice, that is the consciousness and the capacity of having a good behavior relating the energy issues. 2017, Casa SPA delivered the handbook Living Consciousness, and that were given to all the tenants of the popular social housing in Firenze to how to run. It was born to run these new smart meters, but it was very useful because every tenant had some material to think how to run the energy consumption in his house. And this is the manual contains all the descriptions of the main and most common components of the system service: gas meters, electricity, water, thermostats, thermostatic waves, lamps. And you know that in social housing, many people don't know a lot of stuff. I don't know in Ireland, but we have also different ethnic group inside the social housing. So to explain how it works was really a big issue. This the initiative was called Education for Citizenship and Living, and it has been placed in 3 Italian cities: Milano, Trento, and Firenze. So they joined to make another proposal to all the tenants of these 3 cities. Milano is one of the most important Italian cities. Florence is medium size, and Trento medium size, maybe medium small size. The guide was to they made a choice of 6 buildings of public housing to give them guidelines and training. So was written the manual and given to all the tenants another manual for conscious living in houses, buildings, and cities. And it was written in many different languages: Arabic, Chinese, Italian, English, Spanish, due to the different component of the tenants. And this project was created with the main objective of introducing the possible application of the resilience paradigm in lifestyles of tenant or public housing buildings, because we had a social problem about that. The aim for campaign was to understand that a social house is not a simple gift. Needs that you understand that is part of the common good. This is the aim. No, because otherwise, in many social housing, there was not interest of what was going on about waste. You can see, no, you can see a lot of movies, and even in TV you see they write with the spray everything, they throw waste, and of course they don't care about energy issues, absolutely. And so the first important thing was to have this common sense. For this, with this strategy in 2018, Casa SPA implemented its organizational structure with a new social management office. And this was really a big investment because there are 6 people, more or less, they pay 100,000 euro per year to pay this office and to run this kind of report with all the tenants. Then they had 2 external contracts to have a media appearance all around the year, one with an important radio and multimedia station that is Conto Radio, and they had also a contract with an expert consult external, Valentina Dattato. Then they had the 2 handbooks. This was the instruments, they were the instruments to have a dialogue also with the citizens, not only with the tenants, in order to understand what was the importance of the common good and of the energy issues. I have something to say. I don't think the approach with the media was perfect. They talked too much. If you want to say, if you want to see all the movies they made, they are in Italian, but really, they're really boring, I think. And so I think they have to work about this issue. But anyway, it was a good idea to have an exchange. So, an important part of the handbook is the common good. Recognizing the value of assigning accommodation in the first step towards the awareness of having been recipients for a benefit that is first and foremost a common good. This is the base for the initiative. Because the common good means that they run, Casa Spa has been running a campaign to develop a better coexistence between the tenants. Because it's not easy in the social housing to have a good coexistence. Awareness of the common good and understanding what are the best behaviors in order to avoid wasting energy, to save water, to run waste management. So a big work talking and organizing. So the 2 or 3 things that one, the acronym, the ETA, say they were made because there were structural measures, investments in new technologies, and a big campaign about the behavior. The initiative, the structure were 2 in Firenze. Then there were in Milano and Trento, but I know this, so I'm talking just about this. One was the new one, the building entirely in wood in Viale Giannotti, that is not a peripheral area, but just in the middle between the center of the town and outside. The social house has 78 apartments with integrated design that develops since the preliminary phase of the project all the aspects. And like I told you before, that to collect data, I used a heat flow meter, thermal camera, thermohygrometer data logger, and sensor elaborated by the University of Firenze. Then there was another block that was a big social housing in Via Signoretti, where important energy efficiency interventions have been carried in the last 3 years. So 2 blocks of social housing. I had in the time we were planning this meeting, I went to search Valentina Daldato, that has been the project manager for the education for the project. She was the lady that is in charge of the entire project, and she made a lot of work. During 1 year, she trained 6 Casa SPA operators. That it means all the office that is involved in personal development of social housing. And then they trained also 10 tenants that were able after to speak to the other tenants. So because the project is going on, it's not finished. So we are in the phase that we have the office inside that has the consciousness of what is going on. And we have a good group of tenants inside the public housing that are able to talk with the others. There will be another big meeting, the 22 of April in Firenze, where they will try to involve all the social housing in the Firenze area. So we'll go out from the pilot action, because this is a good practice regarding a pilot action, because there are 2 of the social housing in the metropolitan area of Firenze that has 1 million inhabitants, more or less. So it's quite bigger than all the city. So she trained all these people, and all these people now can run the implementation of the project to extend the project to all the other social housing in the metropolitan area of Firenze. And they work about care and maintenance of the common good, sense of belonging and community, diversity as an opportunity and resource, and relationship with the city and the neighborhood. This was where the focus and the issues where they trained all these people. Then they produced 4 video radio broadcasts, 1 per lesson, and 22 video radio broadcasts with Conto Radio, the media I told you before. And it is all online, of course. If you want to be bored by very long, no, but anyway, it was nice. It was nice to try. So, like I told you, the project started in June 2020, and it's still ongoing. The most of the project has to begin, according what the president of Casa SPA, Luca Talguri, told us. And it's going to involve all the social housing buildings in the municipalities of the metropolitan area of Firenze. In April, will be held a meeting with the presentation of the experience with the 10 tenants in Viale Gianotti and the 6 employees and managers of Casa SPA personnel. The aim is to expand the experience into more social houses buildings. Challenge, of course, is not easy. I don't know your experience. I have some experience in social housing, in meetings in social housing, and there are challenges. The main challenge was to enable people to have a constructive and proactive exchange, abandoning the most common way of destructive confrontation and resistance to dialogue. That is what I found also not only in social housing, but in any place where a lot of people live together. It was very difficult. All the time I tried to convince people to make an investment to improve their buildings. It was almost impossible. The most common response was to say, I'm too old, I don't see the improving, so I spend the money in another way. And that's it. Okay, that is, so I had difficulty in the relation. But the participants were used to a single mode of frontal confrontation, and it was necessary to invest time and effort in showing a different, collaborative and participative approach that was in charge of the consultant and of Stefania Iazzi, of Casa SPA that is part of the office, and they were really able to have this continuous speech. This approach was initially received with skepticism and reticence. The resistance to change will be repeated at the beginning of each new change process within a new context. But the proposed strategy foresees a necessary and physiological time to overcome this initial resistance. I appreciated very much talking to Casa SPA and to the consultant, the fact that they didn't try to say that there was everything was running in a perfect way. So it was a challenge. It is not easy to talk with different people from different countries with different language and to involve them in for the common good and for the energy issues. It's not easy, but anyway, they had a good result, and now they have this team, the HALT team. We think that is enough easy to transfer this good practice because it's a part. We tried, they tried. I studied, I talked with them, and I have seen it's possible. I have seen all the 22 lessons. I have seen all the broadcasts they did, and I've seen it's possible. No? It's a challenge that anyone who wants can do. We were not on the basis of a very difficult situation. Firenze is a city that has not the huge problems of other metropolitan areas. Anyway, the path was good, and the people and the former people has a good conviction to go on. Thank you for the attention.
Don't run away. Do we have any questions for Sergio in the room?
I have more comments than anything else. What I really liked about this good practice, I've worked, I know, with Brian in Cork City Council, looking at social housing, and I think you're right. I think you have to merely involve the residents. And what I really like about this good practice is that by training certain residents, they're the ones that are going out then and imparting the information to their neighbours, showing them, you know, the benefits of, you know, changing their behaviours to managing their waste and energy. And I think sometimes if that information is coming from somebody that's one of them, it makes much more impact than somebody externally coming in. So that's what I really kind of got from that. I thought it was very beneficial.
You're right. In effect, I have seen that there are some of these people that is very motivated, and they say, okay, we go on, but I am speaking about some 10, not all the 10, but 4 or 5 are really greatly motivated, and they want to go on because they really enjoy it, after all, no? Because to stay in a better place after all this effort is good for everybody, you know? And they realized that they were improving their living in this way.
Just something that I picked up. Sorry, did you?
Just that it creates more of a sense of community.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Especially because they made door-to-door meetings. No, they went to the lady or to the visitor to ask how was running the waste, or how was running the language, what problems of parking, and all this stuff. And so this developed a better sense of community.
Just something I was going to ask you about, Sergio, is the guidebook or the manual that you gave to each tenant on how to manage their home. So it was effectively like an operations manual, was it, for their home? So like obviously if you buy a car, you get an operation manual, or if you buy something. So this book was basically telling them how to manage their heating, manage their lighting to improve their energy efficiency. How did you get a good response back from that?
The response to the book, as far as I know, was enough good. But to go and explain the handbook was much better. So if you just give a book, there will be a lot of people that simply throw it away. But if you go and talk with them, about the handbook makes really a different story at the end.
And it was definitely, once you had that book and you went and spoke to people and you said, look, this is da 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 da, there was definitely improvement from that conversation in that book. They were able to improve their energy efficiency.
Yes, yes, yes. They have to, it's difficult to make the percentage because the allergen note is quite new. So it
Yes,
have
it's-
not the reference of years before, it's new. But it was important because in some new houses that I have seen, even in Firenze, the new houses were almost destroyed because they simply they didn't care. And so
Yeah, it's interesting that we can go off and we can buy a car for like €100,000 and we get this manual, or €20,000 and you get a manual on how to operate the air conditioning, how to do this, how to do that, and the other. Yet you could have a house that's worth €200,000. Nobody tells you how to operate it.
yeah, that's it. You're quite right. This is the reason why, one of the reasons why they did the handbook from the beginning. It's the beginning of the story because it began in Firenze in 2017 and the project of Federcasa is a couple of years after.
Okay, any other questions from the room? Brian?
Sergio, I suppose more comments. I really like the idea of this one because it's not about numbers necessarily, but it is about getting people to change behaviour in a major way if they need to. And I like the emphasis on the idea of common good and the social benefit and people accepting responsibility for what to do. I think it's something we could learn a lot from.
Yeah, because you can keep adding to it. Once you've opened the conversation and the dialogue,
Yeah,
you can start to bring other ideas to it all the time.
and I think we probably don't emphasise in our education system is education for living. We live beside each other, we have things we need to do, we have responsibilities. I think you could draw a lot from that.
Yeah, I thought it was really clever now. Like the dialogue and the engagement piece is very important. If you have communication channels, you can achieve those, you know. Any other questions from the floor? No, do we have any online?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay, thank you, Sergio.
Thank you.
So now we're going online to speak to Sonia Sotero from Santander City Council, who's going to speak about the Worthy Winter Reduced Energy Project. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's Sonia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. As most of you know, my name is Sonia Sotero, and I belong to the innovation area of Santander City Council. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to participate in this technical workshop, and especially thanks to Rose for all her help and support. Thank you very much, Rose. Okay, the title of this good practice is A Worthy Winter, and it aims to reduce the energy poverty by the replacement of coal boilers with biomass boilers, reducing not only the energy consumption and the energy cost, but also the CO2 emissions. This good practice belongs to SCAN, which is an energy consulting that has been contracted by Santander City Council in the framework of the Empower project. Next slide, please. Okay, this good practice illustrates a campaign to reduce the risk of a heating crisis by supporting the biomass boilers at a local level. The core of the good practice is the replacement of a coal boiler by a biomass boiler. This action has been carried out in a residential building, which is located in a small Spanish town called Salamanca, which belongs to Castilla y León region, as you can see on the figure on the right side. The residential building is a 6-floor building, which has 2 apartments per floor, and at the street level, this building has shops. The initial boiler, as previously commented, was a coal boiler that was very close to the end of its useful life, so it didn't provide enough heating in wintertime, so it should be replaced. The community, most of them elderly people, wanted to use renewables because this building is south-facing. So they wanted to use a solar panel-based solution. However, during the assessment of the viability of this solution, several problems appeared, such as that there was not enough space on the roof in order to install the required number of collector panels. And also the visual impact was very high. So the residents were informed about different solutions, and one of the solutions was using a biomass boiler. So after being presented the main advantage of these solutions, they decide to choose the biomass boiler. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the main features of the biomass boiler. Indeed, it's a two-boiler cascade system and is fully equipped. This system includes two buffer tanks, one of them with 1,000 liters and the second one with 1,500 liters. And this system includes 3 smart meters, one per each boiler and the third one for the domestic hot water. And this feature is what makes this good practice unique, because at least in Spain, the use of smart meters is widespread in the electricity domain. Indeed, in Spain, most of the buildings has installed smart meters which allow residents to monitor the electricity consumption. However, in terms of heating and cooling systems, it's very weird to install a smart meter. In addition to this, this system includes ADSL connection, which enable the remote control of the boiler. And in addition, also, every flat includes an individual radiator meter, so each resident may check his or her own consumption. As previously commented, moving from coal to biomass has enabled a further reduction in CO2 emissions, and in relation with this, in this good practice, a local pellet provider has been involved, so the transportation cost and the CO2 emissions associated to the transportation has been also reduced. And we have also collaborated in boosting the local economy. Next slide, please. Regarding funding and resources, the initial investment, which includes the purchase and installation of this system, has been 72,600 euros, and at the moment of this installation, there were available national subsidies for heating with renewables, and in this particular case, an amount of 42,000 euros was achieved, including the energy monitoring system. In this sense, an ESCO company has been in charge of making the investment, guarantee the savings, and also taking the risk that if the installation does not improve the energy savings, the client will not be able to pay for it. And regarding the owners, the elderly people, they are paying the same price before and after the replacement, even though they should be paying less. But this saving is used by the ESCO company in order to pay the initial investment. Next slide, please. This table summarizes the main evidence of success of this good practice. This replacement has allowed reducing the number of operating hours and reducing the energy consumption while providing the same heat. Regarding the savings achieved, the annual energy savings achieved are around 37%, while the annual economic savings are around 7,000 euros. And regarding the reduction of CO2 emissions, this has been reduced in 60%. In terms of the main challenges, we have found two challenges. The first one is about the use of renewables. At the beginning, the community wanted to use the solar panels, but at the end, they chose the biomass solution. And the second challenge is in relation with the building. During the installation process, several problems appear in the floor of the boiler room because it's an old building, but all these problems were fixed by the installation company with a small delay. Next slide, please. And finally, regarding the transferability of this good practice, replacing the fossil fuel heating with renewables requires informing consumers about the economic and environmental benefits. Most of the speakers have highlighted the importance of the communication and the involvement of the final users, because are the key in this type of projects. In addition to this, the identification of local biomass suppliers is also very important, not only from the economic, but also from the environmental point of view. Then the actions carried out in the residential sector that has been presented in this good practice are easily transferred to other sectors, such as the public buildings, the schools, and the sports centers. So maybe the only difference is to identify the different barriers that will depend on the use of the specific building. And finally, these simple renovation measures are being implemented in 10 European regions, including Castilla y León region. And all these actions have been carried out in the framework of the Replace project. And I would like to finish my presentation sharing with you a video which better explains this good practice and the Replace project.
Climate change is one of the most important challenges we're facing today. And while we are talking about renewable energy, mostly with respect to producing electricity, the huge energy demand for heating and cooling is often overlooked. 50% of Europe's final energy consumption can be attributed to energy used to heat or cool our buildings. This leads to a high dependence on fossil fuel imports. We simply have to use our energy wisely. Though, about 80 million of 120 million installed space heating systems in Europe currently only achieve an energy label C or D. These facts give rise to motivate end consumers to replace their equipment as quickly as possible with more efficient, environmentally friendly alternative systems. This is the mission of the project Replace.
The challenges. As a rule, outdated heating and cooling systems normally are replaced when they permanently fail during use or are about to fail. There is then often no time for informed decisions towards the change to an alternative heating system. In addition, the amount of information required for a changeover is high. Many questions have to be clarified and different bodies consulted.
Often, there's not enough money available to afford climate-friendly systems with higher upfront investment, even though costs are much lower in the long run.
By replacing your inefficient heating system right now, you can immediately reduce energy consumption and CO2 emissions. If you complement your oven or boiler replacement by some simple energy-saving measures, you can not only easily reduce your energy consumption by 20 to 30%, but also save a lot of money due to a reduced heating bill.
The mission? For the first time, replacement campaigns take place on a coordinated trans-regional level. The project Replace, with its 12 partners in 9 countries, develops tailored information campaigns in 10 pilot regions across Europe and Southeastern European countries.
Replace offers information and consulting for end consumers, like for example online tools, in order to quickly find CO2-friendly technology options suited to your house and estimate the costs and benefits of those replacing systems.
Boiler and oven replacement campaigns in 10 target regions habiting 8 million residents.
Trainings for installers, intermediaries, as well as investors that provide basic rules for planning sustainable systems.
Spreads best practice examples through organizing field trips and open house events and more.
The Northwest Croatia Regional Energy Agency REGEA is a partner on the project Replace. The target region of Northwest Croatia covers Karlovac County, Krapina, Zagorje County, Zagreb County and the city of Zagreb. In the region, we need to boost the phase out of inefficient and old cooling systems by targeting consumers, investors, installers and chimney sweepers and support them in the making of feasible and sustainable solutions for the use of renewable energy sources in their households. To boost the phase out of the efficient and old cooling systems, energy savings campaigns will be initiated in the Northwest Croatia with the help and support of the chimney sweepers and installers. The main objective of the campaign will be to label existing boilers in the households visited by the chimney sweepers and installers, as well as communicating the benefits of the boiler replacement.
Spain, in the region of Castilla León, what we are planning to do is to prepare a replacement campaign to support our consumers to change their old oil and coal boilers by new biomass systems. The way to support them by this campaign will be through specific activities, like preparing a place where they can find good information and the best practices, and also a place where they can ask any questions they might have. The regional government, through EREN, the Regional Energy Agency, will also prepare some funding, a specific fund, for this substitution, aimed at gaining the targets of the regional government and the overall region. Also, what we would like to do is to activate the market. Not only consumers need this kind of support, but also installers and financiers and other market actors will benefit from our project action.
The results? By replacing their inefficient systems, end users save energy, CO2 and money. Air quality and environment improve. Property value increases through sustainable and climate-friendly energy supply. Homeowners and regions strengthen their resilience due to regionally sourced renewable energy. Find out more about the project and visit our website, replace-project.eu.
Question to you is, you said that you didn't give a saving to the people that are using this in terms of they paid the same before and they paid the same after.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, would it have been a good idea to have said, listen, we're putting in this new sustainable heating system which is carbon friendly and it reduces carbon emissions, but we're going to give you some reduction in your energy costs just to get buy-in from them?
Yes, I agree with you that that should be another option, but at the moment of the agreement between the company and the clients, they decide to do it in this way. So
I'm just thinking that in terms of fuel poverty, obviously, if they were, I don't know how they were in this individual block, but if they were struggling to kind of pay a bill, it would have shown good willing to say, look, we're going to update your heating. You're not asking them to do anything. You're offering the same amount of heat as they had before. But if you said to them, listen, we're going to reduce your bill by a little bit, I think it would have been a good move.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Brian. Yeah.
Sonia, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just curious, are there many pellet suppliers in the area, and does the pellet come from local timber?
It's a really good question, Brian, but I am sorry. As I commented at the beginning of the of the presentation. We are not the owners of this good practice, but I can ask Scan about this concrete question, and I will send you an email with the correct answer. Okay, thank you.
Sonia, it's Rose here. I just have a quick question. The tenants in this block were elderly tenants. Can you tell us what kind of challenges did you face to get those tenants on board? And would that have been different than, say, if you had younger tenants? Was there any specific things for this older clientele? Did you have to spend more time with them or explain more in depth the changes that were going to happen?
Thank you very much for your question, Rose. As you may imagine, the preparation for these meetings were more intense because you need to take into account the audience, and also the message and all the information should be prepared, taking into account that they will need more concrete and easy to understand message. So it was more complicated that when you prepare a meeting with young or adult people, but at the end it was very successful, the different meetings with them, and they were able to understand this solution and the main advantage for them.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Sonia. We'll go on to our next contributors now who are in the room. So I'd like to invite up here Dr. Wendy Rowan, Dr. Stephen McCarthy from UCC, and Sortis Papadillis from Hebus Intelligence in Greece, who are going to present and speak about the Act for Eco Energy Behaviour Change Programme. So I'd like to come on. Thank you.
So hi everybody, my name is Wendy. I come from Business Information Systems, Cork University Business School, University College Cork. Myself and my colleagues here today worked on H2020 funded project for several years with 9 consortium partners. UCC was the Irish partner, and Sotiris was from Hebes, and he was the Greek partner. So just to give you a bit of background, the purpose of the website was actually this e-learning educational website. So it's basically for the home energy consumer to go on a self-paced e-learning, free e-learning website to learn about how to save energy in the home. So it's some tips there about how to improve your home, how to behave in a more energy sufficient way, and really the website takes them through a ladder of change. So if we go to the first slide. So here you can see that the website was actually designed over a period of years with, we have partners in Belgium called SDS, and they're design consultants, and they helped us with the design process. We have partners in Portugal who are citizen consumer experts. We have partners in Finland who are also consumer experts with citizen engagement. So there was a whole hybrid mixture of people in the meeting and in the consortium. So the added benefits for the user is that this platform is freely available, and it's up now as we speak. People are using it. And since we started, we had our pilot in 2020 when COVID, actually we started our pilot when COVID hit, which was a bit bad timing, but who could have predicted that? And then we moved on to roll out later that year. And since the inception of the programme, we have had several thousand users. So what the programme will do, you can go onto the website, it's freely available, you have a choice. You can register and sign up. That means your details are saved and your progress is saved as you go online. Or you can just freely browse and go through the whole learning programme without being registered. It's entirely up to you as a user. So next slide, please. So we have a very short video to explain the program.
Do you know the feeling? You really want to make your habits more eco-friendly. You want to make your home more energy efficient, but you don't know where to begin. Should you change your windows, or install solar panels, or do something else? Most of us want to actively do something to mitigate climate change, but what? You can Google for days on end, but it's still confusing what the best investment is. Where do you get the most climate effect versus your investment? Are the calculations and recommendations you find trustworthy? Instead of Googling, you should go to actforeco.eu. Here you will get thoroughly tested and validated recommendations. Here you get easily understandable explanations and directions which are easy to follow. You'll be equipped to deal with craftsmen and other professionals, and you'll be part of a big community with around 10,000 users in 9 European countries. Here you can share experiences and you will learn what your European neighbours is concerned with climate-wise. Watch out though. One climate improvement may lead to another. You might get addicted. 60% of the Act for Eco users return to get advice as how to be even more climate friendly. Check out Act for Eco and be part of the movement towards a climate friendly future.
So as you can see, it's freely accessible. We actually have 5 themes on the page. So just have to write it down because it's quite a few to remember. So we have one called Produce Your Own Energy, and this is about small micro energy creation in your own home, like solar panels. We also have one called Manage Your Energy Consumption, and this is about thinking your daily routines and behaviours in the home, so you can monitor what you're actually doing. Then we have Improve Your Home, and this is about information on insulation and other things like that, improving the actual fabric of the house. Then we have the Become a Smart Consumer. So this talks about ICT, using technology like the smart meters and things like that in the home, what the benefits are and what your options are for the consumer. The last one is called Sustained Efficient Energy Use. And this is, we did call this the rebound effect initially, but then we thought this wasn't a very good term because rebound has many meanings to many people. So sustained energy efficiency use is about maintaining them good energy behaviours in the home and how you can do that. So the next slide is actually should be a link to Act for Eco platform. Okay, so if you look at the top menu bar, you can see we have the actions and then we have the frequently asked questions, but we also have a language button. So if you drop onto the EN, you can see that the site's available in multiple languages. So depending on where you are in Europe, you can access the site. We have a scrollable screen at the top, which just gives you an indication of what sort of content is within the website. And if we scroll down a little bit further down the page, you can see the actions that I mentioned. See, there's an option there to sign in or begin without signing. Further down the page, we have a video on the project. And then further down, we have information about news and the project partners at the bottom about us, that you can find out more information. So if we scroll back up to the action section, and we press that arrow across, and we go to sustained efficient energy use. And if we just scroll down a little bit more, okay. So you see the picture with the dog and window and the radiator. Each of these bubbles, if you select one, changes. So that's the first step in this particular module. So if I go to that one, yeah, that's number 3. So this is about sustaining sufficiency, so good energy practices in the home. It's a very simple module and easy to do. Obviously, we'd like the user to graduate through each one, but it's quite, you can move around as much as you like as a user. And you'll notice that as you change from one to the other, there's a label there that helps you understand what would be the cost implications for you if you were going to take this action. What's the difficulty of following this learning module? And what would be the CO2 impact? So if we go back to number 3, don't mind. And we begin without signing. Yeah, so yeah, it can be a bit fiddly, you have to get used to it. It's a website you have to become familiar with. And so you have to agree every time you go in, as part of the GDPR process. So what we can see here, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that what we're giving the user is some textual information, but very simple, very easy to understand, not complicated language. and it's setting up the stage for the next screen. So just go next. Again, it's the same process. And it guides them through step by step, reading through the different options. So at the end, if we just go to the quiz, I think if you scroll up a bit and just go to the quiz. So at the end of the session, the users get this option to fill in the quiz to see if they'd actually remembered and learned something from the process. And they can go through the different pages of the quiz. The intention here is that not only do they read and learn something, but they actually decide to make a behavioural change. By completing the quiz, it stimulates the memory and also incentivises them to actually do something. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of the website. I could go through a lot more, but I don't think you'd need that because it's really a self-directed product. It's something that you do by yourself. And as you say, you can set your own pace. So you can go in and find out what you like, really. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Stephen, who's going to talk about the next section. Thank you.
Thanks Wendy, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to start off by going through a bit more of the context of the project. So as Wendy mentioned, it was a consortium of 9 different countries. And in the pilot phase, the idea was that we would launch it across the 9 countries and reach about 10,000 users. So it was a bit of a tall ask. And also just to quote up front, open e-learning, which is free e-learning platforms, anyone can sign up. There's no need for eligibility criteria like you might find in other e-learning courses where people have to have qualifications beforehand. It was available to absolutely anyone with an interest in energy efficiency and sustainable energy consumption. The biggest challenge associated with that is that research suggests in most open e-learning platforms, the drop-off rate is as high as 97%. So first and foremost, trying to create a platform which was going to be engaging was a huge challenge. And then secondly, trying to launch across 9 different countries with different climates, different type of population needs, education levels, again, was going to be a big challenge for us. So the consortium across 9 countries, we had also experts across lots of different areas. Wendy and I come from business school in University College Cork, so we came with the expertise of user engagement and behavioural change when it comes to technology. We had Stirs, who will be talking later as the energy expert, alongside the board technology and the coordinator. But I guess first off, we had to just understand who we were going to try and target. And we did some initial research, which was trying to figure out, well, first and foremost, what do customers need from this platform? And a lot of it has been spoken about today very well, actually, by the likes of Niall earlier and other colleagues. But firstly, people tend to be more price conscious. They think first and foremost about the cost of energy. Equally, comfort comes into the equation. And when seasonal changes, that's also obviously a concern in Ireland. We consume more energy in the winter. So trying to develop a platform which caters to all these needs, and then equally across lots of different countries, like I say, big challenge. We also realised there are challenges, people also feeling that this is a global energy crisis that we're currently dealing with, and what can I, as one Irish male, living in rented accommodation, do about that when China is emitting high volumes of CO2? So it was trying to make people aware that they can take action, they can take concrete actions. So Wendy went through, kind of like she said, the whistle-stop tour. We start off at a very basic level of motivation. So showing that these actions do add up, and simply making people aware that every time you put on the kettle and you fill it up all the way, even though you need 1 cup of tea, that's an efficient energy use. Equally, the example earlier of boilers, leaving them on. Wendy also mentioned about rebounds, so oftentimes people invest in LED bulbs, but they leave them on longer because they go great. That's efficient now, so they don't have to worry about it anymore, or equally more efficient boilers and just leave it on as well. So we were, again, just trying to get people aware of these kind of things, and then just the small actions they could do. So when you go into the platform, it starts off quite a low level. simple things like draft proofing, understanding your energy bill, just making people aware of how to understand that when it comes to switching providers, what they can do about that. Right up into higher level stages when it comes to maybe installing some kind of renewable energy system or heat pumps, for instance, solar panels. You obviously need some kind of expert engagement in this as well, but the platform is kind of the first step in getting people again to know what they can do. So it is a stage-based model, like Wendy said, it's from motivation to exploration to action. And at the end of every part of the platform, there's a quiz that just tries to get people to think, well, what can I do now? So it was also going to be based on peer-reviewed sources. In the video, it was mentioned, well, yes, Google has all this already. So you type in and you get 1 million links on, say, draft proofing. We wanted that for ECO to be a kind of one-stop shop, and equally because of the different consortium partners, each with different area of expertise, we're able to gather a large volume of sources across countries and also different bodies to, again, provide that one place that consumers can go regardless of their knowledge. But again, there was a lot of challenges. Terence will talk more about that as well and what we've learned. I think the big thing for us was recognizing that a one-size-fits-all doesn't necessarily work. And in particular, with open e-learning, it's not like a master's program where you people coming in, they have undergraduate. It's not even like undergraduate where you people coming in with leaving cert. This can be available to anyone, even those who dropped out of school early, maybe you have primary level education, so forth. So trying to create content which is engaging for people, again, who maybe have also no idea of what energy means in the household, how they can go about changing things. That's step number one. Step number two is then creating assessments and quiz, which also appeal to people maybe who have some background in this, because we don't want to completely disengage those either. So having this kind of stage-based model, great well, that eventually you build up and develop more expertise and feel more confident. Equally, if you're already somewhat confident, you go in at higher levels and you're engaged in that part. So yeah, it's an evolving research project that we're working on as well. We've looked at the consumer side. We more recently looked at the user engagement side and have written papers on that, which we're happy to share. But I guess, yeah, it's a really, I think, interesting proof of concept. It was never done before, to our knowledge, trying to cover so many different countries and again, make it available for free. The sustained running of the platform is now something that we're looking into, and possibly additional funding or reaching out to new partners. And actually, sorry, go to the next slide, please. So yeah, it's available, as Wendy said, in 12 languages. There's the platform in the back, which is Engage Suite, which provides that functionality. And I think in the future, expanding it further, we've spoken about other continents even, where maybe these needs are even more particularly pronounced. Wendy and I wrote a piece for a UK website. It got translated into Indonesia. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hits, way more than Ireland, which is kind of interesting. So maybe Indonesia is our next target market. As well, expanding into maybe different areas of sustainability. The platform itself, I think, is something that, again, can expand on. So we're now looking to the next steps. Again, Terence will talk more about that. And yeah, maybe next slide as well. So the coordinator was Lars Kluber in Data Board of Technology. So at the moment, the consortium is, I guess, looking for next steps, really. And again, Terence, I'm going to start stealing your slides, so I'm going to right into that. But it is, I guess, initially the idea as well of building more community-based e-learning platform, which of course didn't quite work out in the COVID scenario. But I think we have found from our research as well, similar to what has been mentioned previously, people are more likely to take action when they feel that their peers are doing the same, because their neighbors see their neighbors installing new windows, suddenly they're interested and they want to know what they can do similarly, what benefit it can have. So the original idea was to have this community platform in here as well and have groups meet locally using the platform. Something that didn't work out but could in the future be revisited. And yeah, I guess eventually just expanding out to see how you engage other expert sources as well. We've created an initial step of peer-reviewed sources which we built into the platform, but again, the opportunity for further expansion. The buzzword of today is gamification. That's something as well we want to build more into when it comes to leadership boards. But long story short, we did achieve the target. We did reach 10,000 users, and the original aim of getting people to complete actions as well, not just visit the page and drop off, was demonstrated also, despite all the challenges of COVID. So I think it's really good first step, but it is only a first step, and like I say, very welcome to open opportunities in the future as well. Which then is on to sisters. Let's move on.
Okay. Hello, my name is Fotis Pamadelis. I represent IBIS. IBIS, this project was responsible for designing the content guidelines. So I would like to say a few things about that first. But before that, as Stephen mentioned, the real innovative part of the EcoDo was not the idea of e-learning per se. The e-learning concept is based on a premise that says if you give out tips, that you can do this, you can do that. This may or may not be very effective, but if you convey knowledge, if you explain to people how something works, or why specific practice is more or less efficient, then probably they can consistently make better decisions. And this is why the learning concept, why the convention. The innovative aspect of EcoDo was the community. The idea that we could have small groups of consumers that could help each other in exploring, let's say, a journey towards energy efficiency and using the content from the platform as a guide to the interactions. This part didn't happen mainly due to COVID. So we're left with the content in the learning part. Regarding the content, when we first decided, okay, let's draft some content, it's easy to say, but hard to decide what exactly is that you want to present. So we follow some principles. One idea was, and actually that was specific delivery. Let's imagine what our clients are, what our users are. So we did a series of use cases and we said, let's say that this specific type of users will actually visit the platform for this specific reason. For instance, nowhere in the content we say to a consumer, you should replace your heating system. Or if you replace your heating system, you should do this and that. But there is content that says, if you have decided already to replace it because it's old, it's broken, etc., you have decided, for instance, to go for the gas boiler, then this is what you should look for. So the idea is to always start some prototypes, some idea of whose particular needs we want to address the platform, and then create the content assuming that this is why they become and use the platform. The other thing that we did is, Stephen mentioned, okay, let's go with it. So we decided a few questions, let's say. One of the very early ones was if one should invest in heat pumps in Greece first. And I would say, okay, let's say EcoDo doesn't exist. What will you do if you want to find information? You go to the internet. Took a list of different sources and websites, and then we filtered out websites where you had opinions or data from sellers or installers, because maybe they were right, but they were not impartial, and also excluded foreign, where you can have someone ask a question, and then someone says, it's a great idea, and someone else says it's a bad idea. So anything that you have in the source contradictory opinions, you remove it. And for the questions that we couldn't find enough impartial and credible information, for that we decided to create content. And another thing, the last thing that guided content development was this idea that to some extent we should be able to individualize information. For instance, one of the very first things that we started with was this tip that says if you lower your thermostat by 1 degree during heating, you get this percentage of savings. It's dependent of your house. It's in a very efficient house, you don't get anything. In a very inefficient, you get. And one thing we did is that we actually try to find, let's say, the boundary conditions. So when does a specific recommendation actually make sense, and what probably not? We succeeded in doing so for some content, not for all the actions, the themes. But generally speaking, the idea was that the more individualized it is, the more tailored it is. Specific needs, the recommendation, then the most probably it is that it's credible. And if you say something credible, then many users will accept it. Remaining recommendation. Okay, this was about the content. Now, next steps. Possible steps. So, we know that we verified the content before the deployment, and we know that people found it interesting. We haven't done any impact assessment, like asking people at the end of the project or something like that. What was the actual impact? But we assume that, okay, it positively affected some people. But one way or another, if you really want to have an impact, you should be able to provide personalized guidance. The way I see it, even if you try to create boundary conditions and present different use cases and etc., individualized advice is much more representative advice. Now, this is a market gap, but not necessarily market opportunity, because who would do that? Who would actually provide this engagement? Recommendations and guidelines, especially for residential buildings. So, one idea could be to use energy efficiency pattern that already exists in a lot of countries. We have, for instance, in Greece, the program of transit here, parts, the energy efficiency improvements. Why not use some of this money to actually facilitate the market of small ESCOs and actually reaching and supporting a large number of homeowners themselves. In Greece, if you want to get the subsidy for an energy efficiency retrofit, you actually go to your account, not to an ESCO, because it makes much more sense to have someone that knows how to make the application, but to actually go to someone give you guidance on what makes sense or not. Why not actually try to foster market of export? That's for accountants. And also, why not support innovations that come from ESCOs? And this idea comes from another project where we found an interesting program in Germany that was called Energy Efficiency Meter. We thought that energy efficiency meter was something about measuring energy efficiency. We conducted them because we were interested in that part. It wasn't like that, it was a very different thing. It was a very interesting idea. And the idea was, instead of subsidizing directly building owners, provide support for ESCO companies to create innovations and smart solutions that actually create pipelines of projects. It has some issue the way we implement it, but conceptually, it makes sense. It's a good way to actually try to bring this part together. That's one of them. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, it's a good thing to provide not just information, but also data. And one thing that we have seen again and again in different levels, from building owner level to actually discussions about if you watch discussions in the financing efficiency group of the European Commission, you will see that again and again the question comes, okay, what's the data that supports this specific expectation of rewards based on energy efficiency? There is always a lack of data here from different levels of the chain. So, okay, creating platforms that contain good practices is a nice thing. Creating platforms that contain actual data from actual buildings. It's actually an equally more important thing than actually driving energy efficiency and creating incentives for adoption. And this observatory is a case in France, which actually I liked it very much. We used it as a reference in another project. This idea that can scroll, find actual buildings, find what has happened with these buildings in terms of measures, and actually see numbers, what are the savings and results. I think this is actually quite useful. Okay, I think there's just one more slide. Yes. But there's this slide brings the equal to energy over equal to itself. Okay, it's not a project that focuses on energy poverty, only indirectly you can say. But okay, this comes from something that we try to do. We didn't succeed. The idea was you have support for energy efficiency. Public support. Fine. Why do you need it? Why do you use public funds for energy efficiency in buildings? Of course, there is an overall social benefit that, okay, you never directly quantify, and you never directly measure the actual impact. But, okay, you can say there is. Why not use direct this money also to address energy poverty? It makes sense. What is the problem? The problem is that in many cases, people who suffer from energy poverty live in rented houses. So we don't want to upgrade the house that's rented because people may live. And then what can actually done is that providing additional money to the owner that he can actually raise the rent. So we try to use this idea of bill financing in order for savings, let's say, to follow those people that suffer from energy poverty, even if they live in apartments, go to different apartments. Probably we did it in the wrong way because we actually focused on getting on board utilities. We had utilities in Germany, for instance, PWP, and utilities in Greece, Tripoli or something like that. They are refined by the also operators, and retailers. And it didn't work. And in hindsight, we understand that for this to make sense, it has to be top down. So there must be some policy push, some regulation, intervention, so that utilities are interested in action. Because for all big financial utilities, for utilities to learn. So that was an add-on slide. Try to say something about energy poverty in general. So that's my part.
Thank you, Wendy, Steve, and Iris. Do we have any questions for the three lads on the floor?
Just we're talking about on the website trying to meet individuals' needs. Does that come down as far as recommending companies to use, or is it only the type of system or?
No, it's about systems. It's not about individual providers, because you have to think about it's 9 countries.
Yeah.
The list could be quite endless for each country, and it's a dynamic list of changes. Businesses come in and out of fashion and production. So that wasn't the step that was taken. It was really about explaining systems, different options they could, employ in the house. So, like, if you think about insulation, there's external insulation, there's internal insulation, there's the one where you pump it into the walls, there's stuff you roll out into the attic, all those different options, which if you'd never really had anything to do with energy or insulating your house, you wouldn't have much knowledge about.
Yeah.
But then you have some information on the website about that.
We also spoke to some companies, and their challenge was that someone wants to use the branding.
Yeah.
And then very quickly the challenge comes that if one starts branding, it means that other companies then don't want to do it. So try to remain neutral, isn't there? Yeah. Try to.
Any other questions from the floor? Right.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who signed on, I think, and there's 97% who haven't come back too often. But that's not to take from the product itself, that's more a matter of time of my own time. I think this product has a lot to offer. One of the concerns I have about this, and one or two slightly similar ones, is where there's a cost element, how do you propose to keep it up to date?
Okay, so currently it is being maintained and run by DBT, by Lars Culver, who was the project lead. He has the programming of the back end, which is a Gauge suite. So himself and his programmer are maintaining the website at the moment. So to move it forward, there would need to be some sort of investment or partnership moving forward. Now, in terms of research partnership, that's not a feasible option. It would have to be more of sort of like small donations, inputs, partnerships, so the website can develop into a more holistic offering. So there's a potential here that you could move beyond the home consumer into electric cars or some other sort of information about reducing your energy consumption.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was going to ask you, I feel like there's an opportunity here to tap into the SME market,
yeah,
particularly for small, medium-sized enterprises, and possibly there's an opportunity to charge them, which would fund the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the website is it should be free for users. So we don't want to be going into some sort of like subscription process.
Yeah, but I suppose if you were to say on your website that the business community would donate a subscription model, but it funds the domestic and the social good.
Yeah.
So there's possibly a way of doing that.
There is, because we know that organisations are into corporate social responsibility and having an ethical footprint in their business, so there is that opportunity there.
Because I can see it really useful this in the small SME sector as well, because it's very, very cleverly done.
I mean, there's the opportunity to also translate it into many more languages. We only have, I think, 12 at the moment, is that right, Stephen? So if we have other countries that want to get on board and get involved, that's
and
an opportunity.
In terms of the measures that are suggested or whatever, can you put a cost element against those?
Yeah, we didn't, because of you had different tariffs in different countries, and that became very complicated then. Maybe serious would like to say more about the costing.
Also, that cost is easy to find. You can actually go to contract and ask benefits you can find.
Yeah.
We focus on small case in benefit part, not the cost part.
You know, with your own electricity bill, you're in a 1-year contract, and then you change your contract, and the tariffs constantly change. So that's very difficult with electricity prices going up and down to have a universal tariff.
I mean, it still has a lot of potential. It probably has more potential going forward than what you've done. I know you've put a lot of work into it already, but there's a load that you can do with this, isn't there?
Yeah, there's much more that you can do. It's just having those partnerships, getting involved to develop it further.
Have you considered putting it in public libraries?
So in
Have you considered making it available in public libraries?
public libraries?
Yeah, just a place for people to go in and browse. And you know, a public library these days is as much about finding information as it is about reading books. And also, you know, things like Citizens Advice Bureau.
Yeah.
You know, we're opening an office, hopefully, the next, towards the end, keep getting good back, towards the end of next month. And we were kind of toying with the idea that maybe we could include this with the other product or two we're going to use, you know. And the great thing about this one is it brings people back to the very start of energy conservation, as well as what can you do with your home.
Yeah, no, I like the idea that we have the bit at the end where the behaviour use is continuous. So you said like this rebound effect in terms of, yeah, I've done all these things, like you said, I've changed the LED, I'm leaving it on for 5 times longer. So at least you can go back to that, you know what I mean?
I think it reminds us of the 2-hour shower that we had yesterday evening. Yeah, so it keeps reminding them, you know, it's okay to make these changes, but you need to actually change your behaviour. Don't have a washing machine going with 2 socks in it. You know, that's a ridiculous example, we don't do that, but people do put small clothes in. You know, don't use a tumble dryer when it's a sunny day.
As you say, suddenly you've made this big energy change and you think, my house is so efficient now, and you just start actually becoming inefficient or inefficient because you start using stuff that you wouldn't use before because you think, oh, I've saved all this money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of trying to stop that as well. Do we have any other questions from the floor?
You briefly toyed with talking about gamification.
Yeah.
What were your ideas around that? Because I think if you could get, say, a community using this kind of a platform and there was some sort of gamification, it might just encourage them, first of all, as Sergio mentioned today, for more of that community spirit, particularly in disadvantaged areas, and to compete against one another, maybe to see who can become the most
we're
efficient.
actually looking at another good practice that had a gamification element. Yeah, it wasn't exactly like yours, but it ticked some of these boxes, and the gamification bit was really engaging, and it was a community-based program, and it really ticked a lot of boxes, you know.
Yeah,
So it's a
that was
it's a
something
good area for this to go to.
we did as a group discuss that, and there was the intention of having the community groups and having leaderboards and having sort of like challenges so that people engaged somewhat
Yeah,
more.
this one was done like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We had your 4 options. It's very clever, you know.
There's also the idea of like competitions where like countries would compete against each other, and the idea of, or in their second place, again, Norway's just needed to get back on, and even then at community level, you know, the other parishes take over. But yeah, unfortunately, other priorities meant that it just fell down the list, but it's something we'd love to come back to.
I think for the gamification, my reservation was that it's not necessarily showing that the results are sustainable. While I play a game, I can do a lot of stuff. I can do that.
Well, maybe if you do it as a community, then it maybe has a more long-term impact as opposed to people just individually competing against one another, but it was communities coming together and you know, and maybe linking in with local authorities who have a body of social housing on their books and saying, right, could you create gamification between
This street and that street.
between different streets?
Yeah, we did discuss that because of the timeline of the project and restrictions that we faced during COVID, so it held us back quite a lot
I
from
just
doing that
think you need
community
another
piece.
4 million quid by the
Yeah, that's it, they'll be fine. Everybody got
Yeah, he gave me $100 million this morning, so.
Just one question. I'd be just a wee bit concerned more so that, like if you look at energy companies, they receive, just to give you a small example, like if you had 1 million energy customers, you probably receive about 100,000 inbound phone calls a month. And you're ringing in to complain about your energy bill or something. So I'm always really nervous when I see people are already engaged with the problem, but is this the solution to the problem? So if energy companies would see this as an opportunity, they'd be using it or they'd be on to you. So it's probably just more look at the next step of scaling that out, when you're going to roll it out. Who cares? Who actually cares? So they have the customer.
They do have the customers, but they also have all this sort of like business ideology where they invest in something, they own it, and then they start charging for it. And that was something we did not want to go down that road.
Like I think in just my experience anyway, that they've got an inbound phone call and they want to get rid of Patricia in 7 minutes because it's usually 8 minutes on the call. So there's but the customer's ringing in to complain about their energy bill. So if you give them this for free, it's actually cheaper than having a conversation on the phone. So
I mean, it does make logical sense. Yeah. Right. And we did talk to quite a few companies at the beginning. They were sort of a bit reluctant. Brand, could they have just their brand on it, not have their competitors' brand on it and stuff like that. We didn't really want to go down that road. So
I guess that was part of the funding as well. When there was Horizon 2020, we put that the next stage. Like the funding is finished now, so it could well be the.
It could be the next. Depends really.
Energy cloud in the corner.
Major investor
City Council in the other corner. Do we have any other questions from online or from the room?
Just one more from Lena and Celine. Over the years, we've produced many different information campaigns and platforms in projects, and together with the local energy and climate advisors. The barrier is to make people follow the advice given. And how do we make people commit themselves to follow this advice? And do we know that the target group act according to our advices? So I suppose what Lena's getting at there is, if we have this online platform and people are engaging with it, how do we know from that engagement whether they actually changed their behaviour or undertook some of the actions within their houses?
And are they doing it right?
And I think feedback mechanisms come into that, and that's where a bit of gamification would help, which we didn't have a chance to develop. So yeah.
But as we said, I mean, it is a work in progress.
Yeah.
So, and there's loads of bits you can keep adding on to this, So, I mean, it's a good basis for a good start, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot in this already, just as the initial launch. And as you said, it's gone out to 12 countries or whatever, over 10,000 odd users, it's all these different languages. And you're trying to do lots in terms of what would suit that country, might not suit this. And there is an individualized element to it as well. So you've tried to get a lot into your initial concept. So to me, I'd say hats off to you.
Group of 9 people over many years.
Is that it then? Thank you guys.